Evening. I call to order this meeting of the Washington County Board of Education. We do have all members present. We have a quorum. At this time, I would like to introduce Kenley Catherman. Kenley is a first grade student at Cascade Elementary School, and Kenley is going to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by a moment of silence. Kenley?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, and liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Hello again, Kenley. Thank you for being here this evening. Do you have some folks with you that you would like to introduce? You don't? Well, how about these three people right here on the first row? Would you like to introduce them?
This is my principal, Mr. Phil.
Mr. Woods. Your mom and dad. Kelly, I understand that you left someone at home this evening, is that right? You have another member of the family? And someone that's not sleeping so well? Who is that little person?
My little sister,
Your little sister. And what's her name?
Natalie.
Natalie? Well, when you go home tonight, you tell Natalie that we all said hello, and you please tell her that she missed a really good time. Would you do that for us? Okay. Kenley, would you like to tell us a little bit about what it's like to be a first grader at Cascade?
Yes.
Yes? What's the most fun thing?
I like to do art.
Art. Ah. Is there something special about art that you enjoy?
I like to paint and color and draw.
Oh. Well, I can tell by your outfit that you are very artistic, very creative. Do you by any chance like to read? Big thumbs up. Big thumbs up. And your mom shared with me something that was very interesting. She told me something about books for babies.
I raised the most money in the whole school.
In the whole
Very
school.
good.
Well, congratulations and thanks for doing that. That's a wonderful thing, and it has benefited many in the community. Those little babies, I'm sure, are going to benefit from your efforts. So thank you so much for that. I'm going to ask my colleagues if they have anything that they would like to ask you. Would that be okay? Okay. Anyone?
Do you have any pets?
Yeah.
What pets do you have?
I have a dog and two cats.
What are their names?
Jethro, Gracie, and Piper.
Huh? Do any of them sleep with you at night?
I have a question. Is your sister older or younger?
Younger.
Younger. Maybe if you read her a bedtime story, she'll be able to sleep better, you think? Since you like to read? Would be a good idea?
Well, Kenley, thank you so much for coming and leading us in the pledge and the moment of silence. And thank you, Mom and Dad, and Mr. Woods for being here in support of Kenley.
And enjoy the snow tomorrow. Sorry.
That's not official.
I didn't say snow day.
Okay, at this time, we'll have approval of tonight's agenda. Is there a motion?
Move for approval.
Thank you, Mr. Bickford. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Fisher. Is there any discussion? All those in favor of tonight's agenda? Okay, we're unanimous and the student member concurs. Motion carries. And now for approval of the minutes.
Mrs. Williams, I move for the approval of the closed session minutes dated Tuesday, February the 5th, 2019.
Thank you, Mr. Gesford. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Murray. Any additions or corrections to that set of minutes? Okay, all those in favor of approval? Okay, unanimous.
I also move for the approval of the business meeting minutes dated Tuesday, February the 5th, 2019.
Thank you, Mr. Gesford. Is there a second?
Second.
Any additions or corrections? No? All those in favor? Okay, we're unanimous and the student member concurs. Thank you. At this time, we'll turn things over to Dr. Michael for the first part of his superintendent's report. Dr. Michael.
Thank you, President Williams. Tonight, we're very excited. We have some guests with us this evening. So I'm going to invite Brian Johnson to come forward. He's going to share a little bit about a young lady that's been serving our community for many, many years. And I'll let him share that information. Also, Dr. Pugh's coming forward and Cody Pine. Dr. Pugh's going to share a proclamation regarding CTE Month, Career and Technology Education Month. And then we have a number of special guests with us, some students that are representing a variety of organizations that had a special week here during Career and Technology Education Month. So we're going to start with Mr. Johnson, we'll go to Dr. Pugh, to Mr. Pine, and then we'll kind of clear out the table, invite our guests forward, and ask the board to go down front here in just a moment. So, Mr. Johnson.
Thank you. This past November, we were excited and proud to learn that Mrs. Sarah Mason, school crossing guard, was nominated by the Bester Community of Hope for the Safe Kids Worldwide America's Favorite Crossing Guard National Contest. Mrs. Mason has served as a crossing guard for 52 years, 47 of them at the same location for the Bester Elementary School community. On February 7th, it was announced that Mrs. Mason was awarded second place out of 170 nominations, having received over 7,000 votes. For this award, Bester Elementary School was presented a check for $7,500 to go towards increasing pedestrian safety. In addition to the $7,500, Mrs. Mason received citations from Governor Larry Hogan's office, Washington County Delegate Paul Quarterman, Neil Perot, and Bill Wyvell, United States Senator Chris Van Hollen, and United States Representative David Trone, and was presented a plaque from Hagerstown Police Chief Paul Kiefer for her outstanding commitment to providing community safety. I want to congratulate Mrs. Mason for this national honor and her 52 years of service on behalf of WCPS. Thank you.
And then we'll be calling forward Miss Mason. I did get an opportunity to see a picture that Randy Mills brought up from, when was it, Randy? It was back a long ways, back when Miss Mason worked for the police department in police uniform. It was very interesting to see Miss Mason, another one of our crossing guards, still serving Washington County Public Schools. Dr. Pugh.
Thank you. So I have a proclamation from the Board of Education, and I'll read it to you. It says, whereas career and technology education offers students the opportunity to gain the academic, technical, and employability skills necessary for true career readiness, and whereas students in career and technology education programs participate in authentic, meaningful experiences that improve the quality of their education by increasing engagement and achievement, and whereas career and technology education provides students with career exploration opportunities earlier in their educational experience, which enables them to make informed decisions about their academic coursework and to pursue career pathways, and whereas career and technology teachers prepare students for fulfilling careers by offering integrated programs of study that link secondary and post-secondary education and lead to the attainment of industry-recognized credentials, and whereas employers have access to qualified workforce, ensuring productivity among the business and industry communities, as well as continued economic growth and global competitiveness. Therefore, be it proclaimed that February 2019 is observed by Washington County Public Schools as National Career and Technology Education Month.
So since it is Career Technology Education Month, we wanted to launch one of the first of several promotional videos that we've created that will showcase 45 of the career technology education programs that we have across the county that fall into the 10 career clusters that Maryland represents. These promotional videos will showcase and celebrate our CTE students, our CTE teachers, and our CTE programs. Thank you, and we would like to thank our teachers, our students, and our board, and our superintendent for all the dedication, hard work, perseverance to make our Career Technology Education program such a success. So thank you. And at this time, we'll turn it over to Mr. Johnson and for your...
I'm going to invite the board to go down front, down at this point.
In recognition of second place in the national contest, Ms. Sarah Mason, crossing guard for 52 years.
Congratulations. We'd love to get a picture of you in front of the board.
So within career technology education, there exists many student organizations or career technology student organizations. And during this month, we like to celebrate the students and their advisors that participate in those career technology student organizations. So to start, in observance of Skills USA Week, which was February 3rd to the 9th, we would like to call forward the Skills USA advisors, Tammy Twigg, Anita Higgy, Kurt Wood, and Dave Reiser. And then we would like to call forward the student leaders, Kayla Fortenberry, Morgan Berthwaite, Jayden Miller, and Annika Morin. These are our Skills USA student leaders and Skills USA teacher staff advisors. Next, we would like to, I'm sorry. It's often our law enforcement officials that are giving us the trouble. Congratulations, thank you. Next, in observance of the Future Business Leaders of America, FBLA Week, from February 10th to the 16th, we would like to recognize our two chapters in the county, the Boonesboro FBLA chapter with the advisor Molly Shearer, the president Ryan Best, and the vice president Cindy Lee. From the Clear Spring FBLA chapter, our advisor Stephen Shawalder, the president Paige Siebert, and the vice president Samuel Elmore. These ladies and gentlemen are our FBLA leadership advisors and our student leaders. Congratulations, FBLA. And last but certainly not least, an observation of the Future Farmers of America, FFA, week from February 16th to the 23rd. We would like to recognize our following chapters in Washington County. From the Boonesboro FFA chapter, Advisor Quinn Martin, President Helen Lettingham, Vice President Olivia DeBall. From the Clear Spring FFA chapter, Advisor Mr. Tom Mazzoni, President Haley Booth, Vice President Cole Hickson. And from the Smithsburg FFA chapter, Advisor Lee Ruark, and Vice President Aaron Rawls. Ladies and gentlemen, these are our FFA advisors and student leaders.
Thank you again for coming tonight.
Congratulations. Thank you.
Madam President, that's all I have for right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Michael. At this time, we'll have public comment. We have one person signed up, Mr. Becker. Mr. Becker, I know you're familiar with the process, so I won't have to read from policy this evening.
You don't have to read from policy, and I'll be well within the time limit. I don't, do you want to do it just so you can get?
Just for the practice.
But thank you, President Williams and board members and Dr. Michael for the opportunity to speak this evening. First, congratulations to Mrs. Mason for her dedication and her service to our students. I also recognize our CTE professionals, and their students, because this month is an amazing month. Without our trades, our economy would grind to a halt. Our nation does not do enough to encourage students to pursue careers in trades. Our FBLA members, they're our jump-starting their careers. They're our future business leaders. Whether they're small businesses or large, they're essential to our community. Without our businesses, again, like our trades, we would grind to a halt economically. And to our FFA members, careers in agriculture literally keep food on store shelves and on kitchen tables throughout the nation. I'm humbled still to be a recipient of an honorary FFA degree while I was a teacher at Clear Spring High School. And the careers in agriculture go far beyond what a lot of people stereotypically think of the quote-unquote farmer. It is literally a growing field exponentially with the technology that we have in place. But this evening, I briefly thank the board members and WCPS staff for drafting a thoughtful and physically sound budget. The inclusion of pre-K teachers and paras will continue to positively impact our early learners. And positive impact will actually ripple for years to come. We'll see that literally for decades as we continue to roll out the pre-K programs throughout our communities. Additional counselors and social workers, paraprofessionals, EL teachers, any opportunity we have to enhance our professional staff, our certified staff, our support staff, those enhancements benefit our students and our community. Dr. Michael and staff and the Board of Ed very thoughtfully examined our resources and developed a budget that will come up for the budget hearing. And I know this isn't the actual budget hearing, but I'm compelled to share these couple moments and thank you for your efforts and connect our budget to what we're doing with CTE. Imagine if we didn't have the staff, if we didn't have the facilities in place, we wouldn't be able to offer the programs that we have at Washington County Technical High School, all of our comprehensive schools. BIFSA, which is really a leading education facility in the state. Many counties look to BIFSA and what we do there and at Tech High as leaders. I also share, though, you aren't the ones who need to hear this, but our county commissioners. The fully funded draft budget is essential. We won't be able to continue the services we're providing to our students without that fully funded budget. I encourage staff, students, parents, community members to check out the budget on the board's website. Find it, it's there, it's really easy at WCPSMD. Attend the public hearing in March. If there are things that you like in the budget, come out and tell our board members that you like what's in the budget. If you think we need to amend the budget, please come out and tell our board members. And finally, talk of budget is not complete without talking about what's happening on the state level. The Kirwan Commission has a ton, and that is, I know, hyperbole, but a ton of recommendations that are essential to the future of public schools in Maryland. Our students cannot afford to have that funding delayed another year or 2 or 3 as we keep seeing. Who knows how long these legislators are going to delay the commissioner's recommendation. Maryland students deserve better than antiquated funding formulas. Our county is a perfect example of funding agents flat funding at old rates. The state should not have to penalize Washington County Board of County Commissioners for another year of low-effort funding. And yes, there's getting that low-effort funding mark again this year. Investment in education is an investment in our future. We saw it here tonight. We are hurting ourselves, we are hurting our community, and most importantly, our children if we don't fully fund public education. Thank you for your efforts to create a budget that will go to the hands of our county commissioners, and hopefully they'll see the light and fully fund budget now and in the future for our students. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Becker. Is there anyone else that would like to come forward to address the board at this time during public comment? Okay. At this time, we'll have board member response to public comment, if there is any. We have no old business to conduct this evening, so we'll move on to our first item of new business, the consent agenda. Mr. Bakeville?
Good evening, President Williams, members of the board, Dr. Michael. Tonight I have 3 items for your review. The Purchasing Review Committee did review these items and is recommending approval, and staff is available if you have any additional questions.
Thank you, Mr. Bakeville. Is there a motion?
Madam President, I move to approve the awards, renewals, and procurements for device repairs, iPads, MacBooks, Chromebooks, etc., to iFix Your Eye Corporation and Lifeline Rescue at the unit prices listed. School-based mental health providers to the Mental Health Center of Western Maryland, Villa Maria of Washington County, and Sanmar Children's Home, Inc. at the hourly rates listed, and security improvements at Clear Spring Middle School to GRC General Contractor, Inc. at a cost of $371,227.
Thank you, Mr. Bickford. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Gessford. Any discussion? Any questions for Mr. Bechtel? Okay, then we'll move to the vote on Mr. Bickford's motion. All those in favor of approval of tonight's consent agenda? We're unanimous, and the student member concurs. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next item of new business is the second quarter FY 2019 budget adjustment. Mr. Brandenburg, good evening.
Good evening, President Williams, members of the board, Dr. Michael. We have tonight to consider the second quarter adjustments. These adjustments across categories, so if they are approved this evening, we will take them to the county commissioners. These adjustments recognize changes in estimates, reclassifications, and some savings we've got in fixed charges used to purchase some additional technology equipment and to provide for paraprofessionals for student needs, among other things.
Thank you, Mr. Brandenburg. Is there a motion?
Madam President, I move to approve the proposed FY 2019 second quarter budget adjustments as presented.
Thank you, Mr. Bickford. Is there a second?
Second?
Thank you, Mrs. Murray. Any questions for Mr. Brandenburg? Any discussion? Okay, then we'll move to the motion. The motion is to approve the proposed FY 2019 second quarter budget adjustment as presented. All those in favor? All right, we're unanimous, and the student member concurs.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. That brings us to personnel action. Dr. Bishop? Oh, I'm sorry. Did I skipped ahead? I'm so sorry. My apologies for making you walk all the way up here. At this time, we're going to have the second half of Dr. Michael's report.
Be a minute, so Dr. Bishop will be up here in just a second. Mostly a number of announcements tonight. We certainly want to congratulate Yifeng Zhang, our 8th grade winner from Boonesboro Middle School for the Spelling Bee. We'll be going on in May to the National Spelling Bee, and we wish him the very best of luck. We have a number of activities coming up over the next several days. We have the Math Counts competition at Tech High that begins at 9 o'clock. Most of that is a math test, and while the proctors are grading the tests, there's actually a head-to-head competition. It's always kind of nice to watch. Be at Tech High in the auditoriums where it's traditionally held. Also, this weekend is its academic team, or the equivalent of academic team competition. All 9 high schools will be participating. The Final Four will go head-to-head, and we'll select a winner from the outcome of that. I did want to make the public aware on Tuesday coming up, February 26th at 10 o'clock at Tech High. We're very excited. I think we have over 70 guests signed up so far to come to our Innovation Center. We're going to display a lot of the new technology that's been purchased and installed really since November, December, even in January. So our students are really just becoming accustomed to the equipment. You saw a little bit of it in the video tonight, but it's going to be very exciting to see and to see the possibilities for our students for the future, not only in the engineering trades and types of things like that, but manufacturing, just a whole host of cloud computing opportunities. You'll see a lot of connections between computers and high tech if you get the opportunity to visit us on the 26th. Tomorrow, as far as I know, our health and wellness fair for our employees will be held. I think that's scheduled sometime early afternoon, and it's an opportunity for many of our employees to participate in some wellness activities. Also, next week on Tuesday from 6 to 8 at North High is our Elementary Arts Fest, and that's an opportunity to see some of our students' creative talents there as well. And probably the most important announcement I have tonight is tomorrow will be a snow day based on the forecast. We don't take many chances with ice, and in addition to the ranges are somewhere between 1 and 12 on the amount of snow, but we're concerned about when it changes from snow to ice. So at this point, in the abundance of caution, tomorrow will be a snow day. And with that, I'll turn it back to you to turn it back to Dr. Bishop.
Thank you, Dr. Michael. Dr. Bishop, we're ready for you now. with tonight's personnel actions.
Good evening, Mrs. Williams, Dr. Michael, and board members. As we discussed earlier in closed session, there are several staff changes for your review. So at this time, I'd like to ask for your approval of today's personnel actions.
Thank you, Dr. Bishop. Is there a motion? Thank you, Mr. Ridenhour. Is there a second? Second. Thank you, Mrs. Fisher. So if there are no questions for Dr. Bishop, the vote is on personnel actions as discussed earlier in closed session. All those in favor of approval? Okay, we're unanimous. Thank you. And now, if I'm following along on my agenda correctly, we have reports to the board, and our first report is a report from the Facilities Enrollment and Advisory Committee, also known as FIAC. Mr. Criswell, are you taking the lead? You'll be making the introductions?
Yes, ma'am, I will. So,
Welcome.
President Williams, members of the board, Superintendent Michael, I'm here this evening with Jeff Prue, our Chief Operating Officer, Mr. Rob Rollins, our Director of Facility Planning and Development, and our Facility Enrollment Advisory Committee co-chairpersons, Ms. Jennifer Ashball and Ms. Karen Kramer, to present the report and recommendations of the FIAC, or the Facility Enrollment Advisory Committee, on the Sharpsburg Elementary and adjacent elementary school attendance zones. I think we're waiting for the presentation to come up.
There we go.
Okay. There we go. Okay, so on April of last year, the board issued a charge to the FIAC that directed them to make recommendations for a Sharpsburg Elementary Replacement School and to provide enrollment relief for adjacent elementary schools. Since that time, the committee has met 6 times. They've considered 8 different attendance zone realignment options in accordance with school board policy and regulations. On November 13th, the same individuals that I have here with me today presented a progress report to the board. After that meeting, they went back and they met on December 12th and unanimously voted to recommend the exact same 3 proposals in their final report that we have provided to you in your packet. The current elementary attendance zones, you can see Sharpsburg Elementary is in white, going kind of in a counterclockwise motion. The current Pleasant Valley Elementary attendance zone is in purple. The Boonesboro Elementary attendance zone is in blue. Rockland Woods Elementary attendance zone is in brown, and the Fountain Rock Elementary attendance zone is in green. So the committee started this process by reviewing September 2017 enrollment, and then this past year they reviewed the September 2018 enrollment. Looking at the white columns on the right side of the screen, you can see that Boonesboro Elementary this year was at 111% of its state-rated capacity, and Pleasant Valley Elementary was at 102% of its state-rated capacity. The committee took this into account, along with the 2021 enrollment projections in conjunction and at the request of the charge that the board provided to them. Looking at those enrollment projections, Boonesboro Elementary is projected to be 53 students higher than they were this past September, or at 121% of its state-rated capacity in 2021. Pleasant Valley Elementary is projected to be about 15 students higher than it was this past September, and that's at 109% of its state-rated capacity. The new Sharpsburg Elementary, when it opens, will have a state-rated capacity of 471 students, and if nothing changes, it would open at about 61% of its capacity based on the current enrollment projections. Of course, the recommendations were provided into your report, but I'm going to briefly kind of go through them again here just to remind everyone of what those recommendations are. Recommendation number 1 reassigns approximately 11 K through 5 Boonesboro Elementary students to Sharpsburg Elementary. If you look at the table on the lower right-hand corner of the screen, you can see that this recommendation area, on average, produces about 10 K through 5 students per year, and that's taken over a 7-year sample. So it's stayed pretty static since that time. This particular area is the western portion of the existing Boonesboro Elementary attendance zone. It is just north of Shepherdstown Pike and includes Kaufman Farms Road. As we zoom in here a little bit closer, looking at the aerial view, you can see that it's kind of a farm area, more of a rural area. And the entrance lane there is actually directly across from the county's Division of Highways building, if you're familiar with it, along Shepherdstown Pike as you're driving down through. Recommendation number 2 reassigns approximately 101 K through 5 Boonesboro Elementary students to Sharpsburg Elementary. Again, looking at the box on the lower right-hand corner of the screen, you can see that this recommendation area on average produces about 103 K through 5 students over a period of 7 years that we looked at. This particular area is best described as the town of Keedysville. It sits just south of Shepherdstown Pike, and the recommendation area encompasses the entire town. Looking at the aerial, you can see the Division of Highways building just across from Kaufman Farms Road. It's kind of a gravel parking lot. They have salt and gravel there. If you look just north of the screen, or towards the top of the screen under Shepherdstown, you can see a little parking lot there. That's the Bonnie's at Redbird. If you look at kind of the lasso-looking thing in the center of the area, that is the Stonecrest development within the town of Keedysville. Just, again, for point of reference as to where this area is and what all it encompasses. The third and final recommendation that's provided in the report reassigns approximately 18 K through 5 Pleasant Valley Elementary students to Sharpsburg Elementary. Again, looking at the recommendation area and the chart that's been provided, this area is on average generated about 26 K through 5 students per year. It's been down the past couple years. The committee took that into account, and it's discussed in the report. This particular area basically includes most of the properties on either side of Chestnut Grove Road. As I zoom in a little bit here, you can see that as it moves towards the north, it basically stops at Nick Road. Towards the south, it goes just past Rocky Road, not the ice cream, but the actual road. And looking at the area from an aerial map, the mountains kind of bound it to the east, and the current Sharpsburg Elementary attendance zone bounds it to the west. Towards the southern area of this region on this road, this was where we had the washout this past summer, where I think we had some flooding occur. But again, these are the same 3 recommendations that were presented in the progress report that was presented to you on November 13th. So looking at the results of these recommendations, again, we put up the 2021 enrollment projections with none of the recommendations included. As we take these 3 recommendations into account, the report will point out that on total, it would move approximately 130 K through 5 students. It pulls about 112 out of the Boonesboro Elementary attendance zone. It pulls 18 out of the Pleasant Valley Elementary attendance zone, and it puts 130 into the Sharpsburg Elementary attendance zone. The resulting impact, it brings Boonesboro Elementary down to about 100% of the state rated capacity. It brings Pleasant Valley basically to 101% of its state rated capacity, but that's 2 students over, so it's basically 100%. And it gets Sharpsburg Elementary up to 93% of its new state rated capacity that will be completed in August of 2020. So the current attendance zones, looking back at the map, with the implementation of these 3 recommendations, Sharpsburg Elementary would look like what is shown on the screen with white. You can see that basically it has expanded from the west to the east, and it's taken portions of Boonesboro Elementary and Pleasant Valley Elementary into it. And again, this is all spelled out in the document that was provided to you and will be put on the Facility Enrollment Advisory Committee's webpage tomorrow. With that, I'm going to hand it over to Mr. Prue.
So next steps for the board is my piece. In reference to Administrative Regulation JCA-R, the board is to submit the FIAC's final report to the superintendent. The superintendent has some options. He can accept the report as is. He can offer comments with regard to the recommendations, or he can develop other recommendations after consideration of staff advice, the FIAC report, and other comments that have been offered. The superintendent's report and/or the FIAC report will then be disseminated to the schools involved in the change of the attendance zone proposal. And then the board will hold 1 or more public hearings as it deems necessary to receive comments from parents and residents. The public hearings will be advertised, and parents and residents will be notified in accordance with Board of Education Regulation KD-R. In terms of voting on these recommendations, the change in attendance zone plans will be acted upon by the board within 60 days of the conclusion of your public hearings, unless the board decides that they want to solicit further input and extend that period. The board vote for any change in attendance zone shall be made and announced at least 90 days prior to the effective date of the implementation. So reminder to you, this is for the 2020-2021 school year. So at this juncture, from where we stand today, you have 16 months, essentially, from the start of the new school year. You need 90 days or 3 months. So there's ample time for the superintendent to think on these recommendations, for the board to run public hearings. Typically, as a matter of practice, the Board of Ed has generally liked to give a year's notice. So essentially, the board ought to consider a timeline at this point to be done, if not by the end of this current school year, but definitely by the start of the next school year in August, September, allowing families a year to plan for those changes. And with that, we're happy to review any of this with you or answer any questions you have.
Thank you. Questions? Mr. Kessler?
Yes. I see that there was one correspondence. Was that the only one that we had during this time?
Yes, sir.
And how was that put forth to the public that this person found out? It seems like it might have been just, I heard.
It was a question that came into the Facility Enrollment Advisory Committee email account. There was a little bit of confusion on receiving that. When we got the bug figured out, I instantly responded. The response had to do with another adjacent attendance zone, one that the committee had not been considering, and that is included in the appendix. You can read through the response. The committee was apprised of that particular correspondence, and amongst the media coverage of the meetings that occurred, the notifications of the agendas on the website, we did not receive any additional correspondence or public feedback.
I got the idea from reading this report that perhaps one of the considerations was keeping when you switch these kids, keeping the schools to which they'll go to in middle and high school so that they weren't separated. That was a consideration too?
Yes, we made sure that we only touched the elementary zones, not the middle school and high school zones.
But I saw you rejected the thing about Rockland Woods because kids could end up going to one middle, like I think Williamsport it was, and then end up going to Boonesboro or something.
We were very sensitive of the thought of,
Yeah.
keeping in mind where they were originally supposed to go to middle and high school, to keep them with their friends and their community, so.
I think, Stan, to that point, if we had touched attendance zones either at the base of Rockland Woods, and correct me if I'm wrong, Chad, the base of the Rockland Woods zone or the Fountain Rock zone, those students have different middle and high school attendance zones. So they would have gone to elementary in Sharpsburg, but then they would have been separated from their peers going on to middle school.
Correct. All the students in these recommendations will continue to matriculate on to Boonesboro Middle and Boonesboro High School. There will be no change there.
I just want to thank the committee for your hard work. This is not an easy task, and you've done an excellent job. So thank you very much. We appreciate it.
Anyone else?
Any other questions?
Mm-hmm.
My apologies. We're going to have the same standard. Remember, every time we've opened an elementary school, somebody was going into fifth grade, that individual would have the opportunity. Now, why somebody wouldn't want to go to a brand-new school is confusing, but are we going to have that same standard this time, as far as you know?
I believe it.
I think that's part of board policy, that students could apply for, automatically be granted special permission if they're a rising fifth grader.
Correct.
I will tell you that this has been so much fun to do fiat in the last several schools that we've opened, and most of that is because we spent some money to get the GPS, and I mean, we know where everybody is. I mean, if you remember, Mrs. Ashball, you went through it some earlier times where it was a heck of a lot more difficult to put a finger on what kids were where and, you know, how we were going to set it up to get them to one of the newer schools. So, yeah, this is so much easier.
It's also allowed us to be a little extra sensitive and
Absolutely.
focus on some different thoughts that we weren't able to focus on before, and keep in mind how it really does affect everybody. and get the answers a little bit quicker and easier. And I think Mr. Criswell has been able to be very sensitive to that with us.
We certainly appreciate the board providing us with that technology and ability. Mr. Gesford was at a meeting. I think he saw the engagement of the committee. It allowed us to show real-time locations of addresses and students and make decisions, and it's a very fruitful discussion.
I want to thank, obviously, our committee members and those that aren't here tonight, but also our staff. This is probably our third, fourth, fifth redistricting. I've lost count. I can remember all the way back. I've been involved since when Dr. Morgan was here with redistricting, helping with writing the report that's submitted tonight. And I appreciate how far we've come with our, not only our technology, but I think we have it down to a science. Not that there's always going to be a case where somebody might be upset with the decision that might be made. I think we have it down to a science of people being pretty accurate with our estimates, and from the information we have available, making really good recommendations. So I appreciate the staff's effort and certainly the community and input we've had from our committee members. But a lot of school systems hire companies to do this work, and our staff has done it over and over now very successfully multiple times. So I appreciate their efforts and the community's efforts as well.
Thank you, Dr. Michael. Mrs. Ashball, Mrs. Kramer, thank you so much for your leadership on this committee. I know this is something that you've been involved in for a number of years, and we appreciate your expertise and experience that you bring. And staff, thank you too. You always do such a fine job for us. So thank you so much. All right, our next item of business is board member committee reports. Mr. Mackley, would you like to begin down there?
Sure. The Washington County Association of Student Councils will be meeting on Tuesday, March 12th at Antietam Academy, and at that meeting we'll be electing our next student member of the Board of Education, and I'll actually be running unopposed in that election.
Oh, congratulations. Mrs. Murray, curriculum instruction?
Instruction will meet Tuesday, February 26th at 4 p.m. in the board conference room, and we will be getting an overview of the pre-K curriculum.
Okay.
Nothing new to report since our last meeting.
Okay. Mr. Gesford, facilities?
Yes, we will be meeting on the 26th at 8 o'clock in the third floor conference room. If any changes, we'll put it on the board website.
Policy?
Policy Committee will also be meeting on Tuesday, February 26th. There is a time change, however, we were originally going to meet at our normal 9:15, but we will be meeting at 11:30 on that morning.
Mr. Ridenour, Human Resources?
Nothing to report.
Nothing? Okay, thank you. And the Legislative Response Team, Mr. Stauffer, would you like to give a little report about that? Put you on the spot? We're going to be in Annapolis?
I wish you'd have told me. I was going to have to do
Then
that.
I wouldn't be putting you on the spot.
What do you want me to tell them about the bill?
Just about what we're doing on Thursday.
Thursday, if we can make it to Annapolis, if the ice isn't too bad and so forth for travel, we'll be attending MABE Legislative Day, Maryland Association of Boards Education Legislative Day. There'll be a legislative committee meeting at 10 o'clock, followed by a luncheon where delegates and senators drop in and speak to us while we're eating and so forth from 1. And then at 1 o'clock, some of us are going to attend the hearing in the House Judicial Proceedings Committee on the reportable offense law, which we tried to get passed last year, and it didn't make it. There have been some changes made in it. It appears that it's going to pass the Senate on third reader either tomorrow or Thursday. I forget which day it is, but it has made it through second reading in the Senate, and it'll be going into the House of Delegates. Does that suffice?
Perfect, thank you. You rose to the occasion, and I thank you for that very in-depth report. At this time, we'll move on to miscellaneous business. We have future agenda items that were presented in your packet that you received. We have coming up in March a legislative briefing. Mrs. Kate, I believe, will be with us on March 5th. She'll fill us in on what's been happening in the legislative session. Also on March 5th, we have a budget advocacy and review committee presentation. And I think that's as far as I'll go. We'll just go a month ahead there. If you have anything that you would like to see as a future agenda item, please let a member of the Agenda Planning Committee know. And we'll see what we can do about getting it on the agenda for a future meeting. We'll move on to board member comments. Mr. Ridenour, would you like to begin at that end?
Nothing at this point.
Nothing? Okay, thank you, Mrs. Fisher.
Let's just hope this is the last snow day for the year.
Mr. Gester.
I'd just like to congratulate all of our crossing guards. We were able to celebrate with them last week in their celebration with Sarah and about 18 other crossing guards. It was very humbling to find out that some of them have been there for 50-some years, and some just a few years, but they all love their job and look forward to being with the children. So we'd like to thank all of those who stand out in all kinds of weather and are loved by many, many students. So thank you very much for your hard work.
Mr. Stouther.
Two things. One, I was talking to Mrs. Mason before the meeting, and she's been doing it for 52 years. She started when she was 1 year old, so she's been doing it quite a while. But I want to congratulate, too, reiterate what Mrs. Murray said, the good job that the FIAC committee did on their charge and so forth. That was a very detailed report that they submitted to us.
Thank you, Mr. Stauffer. Mr. Bickford.
Nothing for me tonight.
Mrs. Murray.
Well, I too would like to congratulate Sarah Mason and everyone else who was honored this evening. And also thank you, Mr. Becker, for your support of our proposed school budget. We need more support so that the county commissioners can fund it, fully fund it.
Okay. I'd just like to remind my colleagues of our joint meeting with the county commissioners on Tuesday, February 6th. That Tuesday is shaping up to be a very...
26.
What did I say? The 26th. Did I say the 6th? I thought I said the 26th. I'm sorry. February 26th, next Tuesday, is shaping up to be a very busy day for board members. And we'll be presenting our general fund budget and capital improvement budget. So, Mr. Becker, maybe we'll see you there. Okay. If there's nothing else, we'll stand adjourned.